There's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and that is this. I'm so grateful and excited, actually, about the fact that there's so much we can do these days. Truly. I mean, there are things that we only dreamed about 20 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even just 2 or 3 years ago. There are things that we can do that allows us to be more productive, maybe a lot more efficient. Yeah, that's a good word. If I were to describe the world that we're living in today, we are living in an era of efficiency. Take this little thing that we all carry around. Just in this little box, what we can do. I just found out the other day that I have an app on my phone that I didn't even know was there. I didn't download it or ask for it, but Apple just put it there. And it will identify almost any song for you. Just tap it. It tells you the artist and the name of the song. And the song doesn't even have to be playing on your phone. I was driving down the road and we were listening to the radio, and my daughter was next to me, and she had my phone. My daughter seemed to have my phone more than I do these days. And she's there doing her stuff, and a song came up. And I said, ooh, I never heard this song before. It's kind of a cool song. I like it. Hey, ooh, let's use that app. She opened it up, one tap, boom. Within like 3 or 4 seconds, it told us the name of the song and the artist. And I thought, how great is that? I didn't have to listen to the words and try to memorize a few lines so I go back to my home and search for the song to try to find it. Literally, one tap, and I was able to know. It's good to be efficient. And on the same phone, I have this camera. You all have a camera. And it's not just any camera, right? It's crazy how great these cameras are these days. And it's not just for taking selfies and taking pictures of our friends and family, but it's very useful too. The other day I was outside. By the way, who is enjoying this weather? So awesome, right? Spring's a coming, right? I can't wait. And for me, I'm itching to start my gardening. I'm itching to get out there and work on my property. So I got on my tractor mower and I started it up, and it took a while, but finally got going, and I started driving around a little bit, making sure everything's okay. And then as I'm driving, I look and I see the front tires kind of wobbling a little bit. And I thought, oh no. So I stopped it and I went and looked, and the little lock that holds the tire in place was gone. I was like, oh. I'm looking all around for it, couldn't find it. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what this part is called. How am I going to get this part? And then I'm like, oh wait, I have a little camera right in my pocket. Never thought I'd live to see the day where I'd have a camera with me 24/7. Took a picture, a couple of pictures, went to the auto parts store. Not only could I show them the picture, but I could zoom in and all the detail. Got my part. It's good to be efficient. And that same camera allows us to now video conference. I used to watch sci-fi movies that said, that this is going to happen in the future. And that future is here already. And you guys all take it for granted, but it's crazy, right? I got FaceTime on my phone, and so my wife, she'll occasionally say, hey, on your way home, can you pick up something from the grocery store? Sure, no problem. Can you get some, tomatoes? Sure, no problem. Easy. I go to the grocery store. I walk up to the produce section. Easy until I get there. There's 7 different kinds of tomatoes. I don't know which one she wants. Some are on the vine, some are off the vine, and I'm trying to figure it out. No problem. Pull out my phone, FaceTime her. Here you go, sweetie. Which one would you like? She not only tells me which variety she wants, but she can even pinpoint the exact ones she wants, the ones that look fresh and to her liking. because I want to do the things that my wife likes. It's true what they say, happy wife, happy life. It's true. That's what I live to do. That's my goal in life. And she could tell me exactly which one, all because of FaceTime. It's good to be efficient. In fact, I'll go as far as to say the more efficient we can be, the better. Well, maybe. Maybe there's one thing. Maybe there's one aspect of our lives where it's not so good to be efficient. I was reading a little bit from an author by the name of Bob Goff. Oh, yeah, you know Bob? Yes. I should call him Mr. Goff. I shouldn't call him Bob. I don't know if we're on a first name basis, but. And he talks about one area where maybe it's better to be inefficient. And that one area, that one aspect of our life is this thing called love. The thing we're talking about all week, love. Let me read you an excerpt from one of his books. He says this: "The woman who lives across the street from us has cancer. She called me up and told me the bad news, and I told her, I'm not going to call you ever again. And she's like, what? I went to Radio Shack and got us 2 walkie-talkies, and it was terrific. For the last year, we've been talking on walkie-talkies every night. It's like we're both 14-year-olds and we're both in tree forts." She took a turn for the worse about 4 days ago. So this morning I woke up about 5, and I went to the hospital. I sent the nurse in with a walkie-talkie. And I sat in the next room and called her up. I heard her just start crying because there's something inefficient and beautiful about it. We were sitting in a hospital, separated by a room, talking on walkie-talkies. Be inefficient with your love. The more inefficient, the better. Now, Mr. Goff did not come up with this concept. He's modeling in his life something that the great teacher taught. Not only did he teach it, he lived it in his life. And of course, we're talking about Jesus. So let's see what Jesus did. And I think we have a slide. Do we have a slide of the text that we're going to be looking at today? We'll get that up. It's found in Matthew chapter 26. And we're going to start from verse 6. Matthew chapter 26, starting from verse 6. Let's read this. Let me see. I don't have it in front of me, so I need it up there if I'm going to. There we go. Meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume and poured it over his head. The disciples, they were indignant. They were like, what? When they saw this, what a waste, they said. It could have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor. Now, can you picture the scene? Anointing someone with such expensive perfume and so much of it, it was highly inefficient for her to do that. And the disciples, we just read it, they thought it was such a waste. And if you go to John's account of this story, I believe it's chapter 12 in the book of John, it actually tells us the amount. Interestingly enough, the English translation of it says about 1 pound. Now, which we usually don't measure liquid in pounds, but if we were to think about a pound, it'd be about a pint, right? 16 ounces is about 1 pint. A lot of perfume, right? It's been a long time since I've bought perfume, but that's big. I mean, usually when we buy perfume, it's like this, right? Like 3 ounces, 4 ounces. It's something kind of small. But here, we're talking about a pint. Have you ever bought anyone perfume of this much before? I just feel like we're picturing the scene, right? But I feel like we need to really picture the scene. So I'm going to ask my friend Eden to come up here, because he's going to help me demonstrate something. Oh, I got to put on my mask. Yes, I'll do that. Now, Eden recently asked me to be his mentor, and I was so excited about that. And I hope that after today, you relinquish that offer and tell me you don't want that anymore. But this is part of the mentor-mentee relationship, right? Eden is a friend of mine. I want you to just imagine what it would be like, this scene. Now, just I want to respect the floor, and I also want to respect his clothes here. So I brought a towel. So here we go. I don't know. What's the best way, Eden? You want to just kind of put it over yourself like this? Is that good? Good? All right. Now, picture the scene. This woman comes in. She's got perfume this much. And I should just pretend, right? Should I really? No? All right, face the audience here. She comes, and oh dear, here we go. She pours. Whoa, my goodness. Whoa, she's pouring. I can't keep going. This is crazy. I've only gone through this much, and I can't keep going. Maybe you lift your head up a little bit. I don't want to get the floor too dirty here. Okay, here we go. This is, wow, my goodness, what? I'm only halfway. Just finish it, they said. Oh my goodness, there it is. Now do you understand why the disciples were like, what are you doing? This is crazy. Imagine this. This is just water. Imagine if it was perfume. Let's give Eden a round of applause. Go ahead, take the towel, and I'll clean this up later. Thank you, Eden. You are a good sport. I appreciate it very much. But I wanted you to kind of experience, when you see that, now you understand that's wasteful. Especially when you consider the fact that when you go to John's version of the story, it mentions that Judas' name is mentioned, and when he's the one who speaks up and says, well, this is such a waste, and it's mentioned that this perfume is worth about 300 pence, it says. Now, Bible scholars, they say that that's roughly about $50,000 in today's money. Some people don't even make $50,000 in 1 year. An annual salary of perfume? I love my wife to death, but I'm not sure I would spend my annual salary's worth to buy perfume for her. Now, we know Jesus wasn't wasteful. Remember when he fed 5,000, probably more like 10,000 with women and children, and there was leftovers? He didn't just say, oh, don't worry about the leftovers. They're just leftovers. What did he do? He had them collected, right? So we know Jesus is not a wasteful person by nature. But let's now go back to the verse, our text, and see Jesus' response. Verse 10. But Jesus, aware of this, he's aware of everything that's happening, what the disciples are saying. He replies, why criticize this woman for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. She has poured this perfume on me to prepare my body for burial. I tell you the truth. Wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deed will be remembered and discussed. The thing that the disciples said, you're crazy. Jesus says, this is going to be remembered. Jesus actually said that. This response tells you that Jesus is taking this concept of inefficiency to a whole nother level. We're talking about like exuberantly inefficient. We're talking maybe even recklessly inefficient. I can imagine Jesus saying something like this or thinking something like this. Finally, someone who understands my kind of love. My love may appear to be wasteful, exuberant, maybe even reckless, but that's the very definition of love, is it not? In fact, if we only love when it's efficient, maybe it's not love at all. And we see this in Jesus' life, in the way he interacted with people, in the way he healed people. But most importantly, Jesus he had the choice he could have stayed in heaven. That would have been the efficient thing to do. But he came down to this filthy place. And not only did he come down, but he came down to die for you and for me. Now that is about as inefficient as it gets. Because you see, efficiency goes something like this. Give as little as possible to get the maximum return. Which we all love that in our lives. But love goes something like this. Give as much as possible and expect nothing in return. Ellen White expands on this a little bit in manuscript. Let's see if we can get that up. She says this: that ointment was a symbol of the overflowing heart of the giver. It was an outward demonstration of a love fed by heavenly streams until it overflowed. And that ointment of Mary, which the disciples called waste, is repeating itself 1,000 times in the susceptible hearts of others, for you and for me. The Lord God is profuse. That means exuberantly plentiful, abundant, lavish, extravagant, right? God's gifts are all those things to us and to our world. And the question may be asked, why does the Lord show such waste, such extravagance in the multitude of his gifts that cannot be enumerated? In other words, that can't be counted. You can't count God's gifts, right? The Lord would be so bountiful toward his human family that it cannot be said of him that he could do more. None of us can accuse God of that. He gave it all. When he gave Jesus to our world, he gave all heaven. His love is without a parallel. It did not stop short of anything. These words that you just heard and read describe an efficient God? No. I would say when it comes to his love for us, God is inefficient. Because efficiency seeks maximum productivity. But Jesus seeks maximum connectivity. I wonder what our world would look like if we lived this kind of life with this kind of inefficiency, this kind of inefficient love, or even if it's a fraction of what Jesus, how he practices his love for us. What would our world look like? Chaplain Jose just mentioned next week is World Changers Week, and I think I have another slide of our World Changers Made here, the slogan that we use around here. This is something that's near and dear to my heart because I had the privilege of being a part of coming up with this as part of my job here at Andrews. And we heard some examples of alums who are out there changing the world. And I think that's great. But you know what? You don't need to be a global world changer. If God calls you to do that, awesome. Got to do it. But maybe it's not the global world that you've been called to change. Your world may simply be your dorm room. Your world may simply be your classroom, or your circle of friends, or the club that you belong to. And maybe changing the world, a big part of that is what we're talking about today, is practicing to love others inefficiently. Just taking the time to take care of the guy next to you. That's how you change the world. Oftentimes, when you do that, though, not only is it inefficient, but sometimes it's also inconvenient. And sometimes it's very uncomfortable to do that. I remember one time, my family and I went on a trip, and we were staying in a hotel. And the hotel, like a lot of hotels, had this nice swimming pool. And my daughters love having a swimming pool at a hotel. And so we were out there, and we were swimming, and we were having a really, really good time. And as we were swimming, you know, it's a hotel pool, right? So there are other people there. And there was this little boy who was kind of off by himself, and his mom was nearby. And he started walking toward us and approaching us. And he asked us if he could play with us. I said, sure, why not? Come. I asked him what his name was. He said his name was Tim. I said, come on, Tim. Yeah, let's go ahead and play. Now, as he started talking to us, I quickly realized that there was something. Like, I didn't know what, but there was something in the way he talked and the way he acted. But it's totally cool. Had him come later on, I found out from the mom that he was autistic. Okay? And he asked us if he could play with us. So I said, yeah, come, let's play. So we were playing, I don't know, Marco Polo, and I don't remember what we were playing, and we were having a lot of fun. And after, a little while, we got tired. And my girl said, oh, let's go to the jacuzzi, and let's just hang out there for a little while and rest. So I started going over to the jacuzzi, and got to the jacuzzi, and of course, Tim followed us, came into the jacuzzi with us. So that's cool, come on, Tim. And so we kind of hung out. And after being in the jacuzzi for a while, my girls were getting kind of hot. They wanted to go back into the swimming pool. And they said, Daddy, let's go back into the swimming pool. I said, all right, fine, let's go. And as I started to go to follow them, Tim grabbed my arm. And he started pulling me back. And I said, okay, I was kind of stuck, right? My girls want me to go. Tim's kind of pulling my arm. Inconvenient sometimes when you're taking care of the person next to you. But then it went from inefficient to uncomfortable, and then, inconvenient to now uncomfortable. Because as he's pulling up my arm, and I finally said, all right, girls, why don't you go ahead? I'll be with you in a little bit. And I sat back down next to Tim, and we were hanging out, just Tim and me in the jacuzzi. And that's when it got a little uncomfortable. Because Tim, after I sat down, got a little closer and started hugging me. All right, that's cool. All right, that's fine. Yeah, all right, that's good. Come, that's fine. We'll hang out. Remember, I just met this guy. But then it got even really uncomfortable, because after he started hugging me, he leaned over and he started to kiss my shoulder. It's like, what? Now the mom was right there, and I could tell the mom was at the edge of her seat there, just waiting to jump in, because she obviously knows her son. And when the kissing started to happen, I heard her say, Tim, and she started leaning forward to stop him. And I don't know what it was, but I just kind of held out my hand, and I said, it's fine. It's fine. She looked right into my eyes, and I'll never forget this. She looked right into my eyes, and I started to see some tears in her eyes. And she mouthed and whispered the words back to me, just simply, "Thank you. Thank you." Now, I never saw Tim again on that trip, or the mom. But on that day, my world was a hotel pool with the little autistic boy who, for at least 30 minutes, had some friends to play with. We have opportunities like this all the time with the people that God places in our lives every day. But normally, we choose the people that we want to hang out with, right? And that's cool. We should do that. But that's being highly efficient. That's being highly convenient. And that's being very comfortable. Today, I believe God is convicting us to sometimes be on the lookout when you can choose a different kind of love. The kind that's inefficient, inconvenient, and uncomfortable. After all, that's what God did for us. God didn't wait for us to get our act together. His love says, "I came and died for you because you couldn't get your act together. Because you're broken. Because you're down and out." And there are people all around us in similar situations as well. And it starts with just you and that person next to you. To love him or to love her, even when it's inefficient to do so, even when it's inconvenient to do so, even when it's uncomfortable to do so. That is when you start to change the world.